Nothing puts a smile on my face like when I see people from the New York Times doing me a favor, doing the Second Amendment movement a favor. And I'm happy to report that the New York Times just did us a huge favor. And you can bet dollars to donuts that what I'm about to show you is going to make their way into Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment oriented legal briefs dealing with quote-unquote assault weapon ban cases. Wait till you see the mistake that the anti-gun New York Times just made in favor of the Second Amendment. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and author of the brand new best-selling book, Israel Disarmed, What the 10/7 Terrorist Attacks Teach Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. All right, folks, so obviously we're all familiar with the terrible, tragic events in Pennsylvania, an attempted assassination of President Trump, and the murder of at least one individual Trump supporter by some sort of a crazy person. The motive is unclear. We don't know what's going on. I'm not going to report on that right now because I think people are still figuring this out. That'll be subject to other videos. But, my general rule is if you're able to read about it or watch it on Fox News or conservative media, I try not to cover those things because I figure you come to me for more specific Second Amendment related stuff and not general conservative news. If you guys really want me to cover something in particular, you can let me know. But generally speaking, I try not to cover the same stuff that you can get, like I said, on Fox News or other media outlets like that, or Newsmax, okay? So with that said, though, obviously what happened in Pennsylvania is noteworthy. And the New York Times, of course, tried to spin it, as I see it, to try to make this a gun-related issue. Okay, well, it's clearly not, because, again, if you're either an evil enough or nutty enough, whatever it is, to try to assassinate the President of the United States, there is no gun control law that you can enact that's going to stop you. Because if you're willing to, commit suicide by cop, if you will, by trying to kill someone, no waiting period, no background check, no law, no ATF regulation is going to mean anything to you. And we know that from going all the way back to the time of our founding, from the writings of On Crime and Punishment by Cesar Beccaria, who I've written about extensively and talked about Cesar Beccaria's rule that says that, gun control laws literally do nothing but make it easier to attack law-abiding unarmed people by, criminal thugs with arms. That's Cesar Beccaria from literally the 18th century. So we know this. But with that said, I have a bit of silver lining news here, which is that in their haste to try to attack guns, specifically the AR-15 or the AR-15 style rifle, whatever you want to call it, the New York Times has just made a strategic mistake in our favor. Specifically, and I'll put a link to the article down below, they wrote an article entitled, "An AR-15 style rifle was recovered at the scene of the Trump rally shooting." Okay? Obviously, we know where this is going. They're trying to connect guns up with another crime, because the only way the anti-gunners think they can prevail is by high-profile crimes committed with guns and trying to use that as an excuse to take guns away from law-abiding Americans. But here is where the New York Times made a terrible strategic blunder in our favor, thank God. If you look at the subtitle of the article, here is what it says. I'll put it on the screen. The AR-15 rifle, billed as America's rifle by the National Rifle Association, has been commonly used by mass shooters and, listen very carefully, and is one of the most ubiquitous weapons in the United States. Bing, 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 bing. Hello! Mark Smith on this channel has used the word ubiquitous repeatedly to talk about AR-15s and how to understand them. Now the New York Times has just literally said in the title of their article about the AR-15, it's one of the most ubiquitous weapons in the United States. And who wrote this? It wasn't some random person at the New York Times. It was actually one of their military defense correspondents, apparently a man named Thomas Gibbons Neff, who, according to the byline of this article, and you can check it out, is a Ukraine correspondent and a former Marine infantryman. Literally just said in the cover, not the cover, but in the New York Times, that the AR-15 is one of the most ubiquitous weapons in the United States, which means everywhere. fantastic news because the standard before the U.S. Supreme Court as to whether or not you can ban an AR-15 or any firearm is what they set forth in Heller, which is essentially that if a weapon is in common use, which means commonly possessed, it cannot be banned. By the way, don't criticize me. I'm not saying that if a weapon is not in common use, it can't be protected. But we know for a fact that if it's in common use by Americans for lawful purposes, it's protected, it cannot be banned. So if the AR-15 is one of the most ubiquitous weapons in the United States, according to the New York Times, and this is on top of, I think, the 20 million AR-15 figure by the Washington Post. This is wonderful statements that we're going to be able to use as the Second Amendment community in court proceedings in favor of knocking down semi-automatic rifle bans. Okay? But the article in some ways gets even better because it explains why AR-15s are so popular with Americans. The article goes on to say as follows. AR-15 style rifles are frequently customized with easy to purchase scopes and other accessories that can make even an untrained shooter lethal. Now, the way that sentence is written sounds like it's bad, right? They're trying to say an untrained shooter who's going to be a criminal. No. It's going to backfire on them because what they're really saying, if you read what he says, is that an AR-15 can be customized in a readily easy way by Americans to make even an untrained shooter capable of defending himself or herself, which is exactly why people like AR-15s, because they're easy to use, they're low recoil, all of these sorts of things. So again, as we've talked about before, whatever makes an AR-15 or any firearm helpful to a criminal to commit crimes, it also helps Americans follow the law and protect themselves. In fact, again, because criminals act and law-abiding Americans have to react, as we saw on Saturday in Pennsylvania, it's far more important that law-abiding citizens have the most effective firepower available because we, by virtue of reacting to a criminal that comes in to shoot up a store, by reacting to a criminal that goes into the bank to commit a robbery, by reacting to a mass shooter that goes into a restaurant, we are already, as law-abiding Americans, at a disadvantage. So we need all the firepower we can possibly get. So to the extent this New York Times article says that AR-15s make an untrained shooter lethal, that's good news because it means that ordinary Americans that are not trained because they're just hanging out are capable of defending themselves readily with an AR-15, which is why they're a reason why they're so popular, of course. Then the article goes on to say other favorable things about the qualities of the AR-15. This is what it says next. Quote, light, precise, and with little recoil, the Colt Armalite Rifle 15 Sporter was the first civilian version of the military's M16 rifle when it first hit the market in the 1960s. It had a patented gas operating system that allowed for rapid fire and reloading. The weapon could easily handle a 20-round magazine, was easy to disassemble, and was marketed in one of Colt's early advertisements to hunters, campers, and collectors. Again, look at the adjectives and descriptions of the AR-15 by the New York Times, by their Ukraine correspondent, a former military Marine infantryman. Okay? Light, precise, little recoil. Again, the perfect gun for ordinary Americans that are not trained snipers, that are not trained professional hunters or anything like that, or trained professional shooters. They're just ordinary people that want guns to protect themselves against all forms of tyranny, whether it be wild animals, criminals, terrorists, tyrannical government, whatever the threat may be. Because as we learned on Saturday, as I've taught you before, if you only remember one thing from my videos, remember this. And be confident and hopeful with what I'm about to say. The history of the future has yet to be written. The history of the future has yet to be written, which means that we don't know what's going to come tomorrow. Good, bad, indifferent, or ugly. And we must always be prepared for what we expect might occur. And of course, what we're not expecting could occur. You just never know what today is going to bring. As we saw on Saturday, no one woke up thinking that we're going to have a life-altering, country-altering event in Bethel, Pennsylvania. No one saw that coming. Okay? All right, folks. Well, the bottom line here is the New York Times has done us a great favor in the Second Amendment community. I'm guessing that you're going to start to see this article cited in legal briefs in semi-automatic firearms cases, semi-automatic ban cases, assault weapon ban cases, and so on. We'll see if I'm right, but I'm usually pretty good about this. And very exciting stuff. I'll put a link to the article down below. And again, don't forget to follow me on X at 4boxesdiner. I have almost 17,000 followers. A lot more political and Second Amendment information there. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're still trying to grow the channel. And make sure you check out my book on Amazon, Israel Disarmed. And we'll see you again soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.